Welcome to the think tank. Today I have a very exciting guest. My good friend, my pal, my mastermind buddy, Dr. Carlos Garcia. Let me tell you a little bit about what he does quickly. It's a one-liner. Carlos Garcia is a clinical psychologist who works with entrepreneurs and business professionals looking to achieve breakthroughs and success in their respective fields. In addition to his clinical work, he has worked as a business consultant, helping professionals become masterful leaders. Wow, that's a mouthful, buddy. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Martin. Listen, I really, I'm super honored that you invited me on your show. Super grateful to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
Good, 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 good. Yeah, I've been able to capture a worldwide audience. So, believe it or not, this is going worldwide when it's
Love it.
released. I will
Beautiful.
not edit anything out without your permission. I
Sure.
try to do a very few edits as possible, but we will make it work. It's gonna go viral. We can
I
make a
love it.
star of both of us. Right
I
on?
love it. A lot of people are ready to hear your wisdom.
That's what I'm talking about. So what I'm gonna start off, Doc, with our first question to you today. In these crazy times, how do you find people are coping with COVID-19? And part two of that same question, and your advice to them. You've got the
Sure.
floor.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, Martin. I get that question a lot. And unfortunately, the answer is not well, and understandably so. When we think of, humans and sort of how we tend to interact with our world, we always find a level of comfort around certainty.
Mm-hmm.
We do appreciate and value a certain sense of structure in our lives. And when that starts to sort of get taken from us, like it has in this instance, right, an outside force,
Mm-hmm.
an outside entity starts to disrupt that level of structure for us, there's an internal sense of panic,
Wow.
an internal sense of anxiety, of uncertainty, of like, whoa, what do I do now? How am I
Mm-hmm.
supposed to handle this? And so, you know, I think when we're sort of pushed out of our comfort zone, we are forced to sort of go into our minds to think about what our brains do naturally, which is go into problem solving mode,
Mm-hmm.
right? I
Yep.
talk to people about the process of worry. We often think that worry is a horrible thing, but
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways, in the human mind, it's a benefit. Humans are the only species that are able to look into the future and forecast what are some potential problems that are coming my way and what are some potential solutions on how to solve some of those problems,
Mm-hmm. Very right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so worry is actually a good thing. It's a beneficial thing. It's very adaptive for our species. The problem becomes when we try to control, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we try to think about every possible scenario that will play out
Right.
and every possible solution for it, right? That's going to become overwhelming. And so I think when people are faced with, losing a job, they're being faced with, a lot of parents who are now having to be teachers and the
Oh,
online
yeah.
teaching, a disruption to their financial status. Another thing that's happening, Martin, is, you know, um, there are some relationships that are suffering.
Oh, I could imagine.
Why? Because, people get into a relationship and they get busy. They leave to work in the morning, and so they only need to, interact with their partner a couple of hours in the evening. And
Mm-hmm.
now they're seeing, wait a second, maybe there's been something off with this relationship for a while that we just haven't seen. And now they're sort of having to confront it.
Mm-hmm.
So despite the fact that I think it's not that people aren't handling well, it's that they're being presented with something that they just, haven't dealt with in the past. And the mind is just going into panic mode naturally. However, the good part of this is that it's easy for us when we're feeling an internal disruption, when we're
Mm-hmm.
feeling emotionally disconnected, when we're not happy.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best coping mechanisms is to busy our lives. The less time I have to think about how unhappy I am, the better.
The better. So you preoccupy yourself with other things.
Yes.
You
Right?
find things to do.
Yes.
Good.
Find things to keep us busy, or we, drown out, the noise with, Netflix or food or, any other number of things.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, what that really is creating is we're sort of running from that problem. We're not facing it. And we don't want to face it because it's uncomfortable. I get it.
Right.
But
Exactly.
the more we try to run, it's not going to go anywhere. So it's just gonna keep building tension for us.
Right. Gotcha.
And so I think, Martin, the good thing in all of this is that in a lot of ways, this pandemic and all of the stress that comes with it has forced people to take an honest look at themselves and say, what's been going on for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's been going
Yeah,
on?
yeah. Case in point, I'm preoccupied with my work, with what I do. I am passionate about what I do. And sometimes I forget that I have a wife.
Right, right.
And so I tell her all the time, tell me, just pull me away from the computer. Pull me away from my office. I can be in my office all day long.
Yeah,
So what we decided to do, every Sunday afternoon, have a date afternoon. Go to the beach. Not social distance with nobody around, just go to the beach, get a blanket. I bring my phone, bring my pad. I'm still working,
right, right.
always working, you
With
know how we
company.
are. But I take myself away from it, and I find it helpful to me. I'm doing it for her, for us. We don't fight and argue, but I want it to be happy. It's a balance. So I have to balance my life. That's the key, one of the
Absolutely.
keys. You know?
That's what it is. Balance. And not to say, Martin, that when we busy our lives, it's necessarily that this is the motivator and this is the trigger. Listen, I
Hmm.
I, I love to work. I,
Hmm.
I mean, I think you got my email really really
Yes.
early, and you're like, hey, what's this guy doing now, right? But we're sort of, there's a lot of us that are wired that way. I enjoy work,
Yes.
right? Um, for me though, I've worked through where before work for me was I need to do more,
Hmm.
I need to work harder because inside I don't feel like I'm enough.
Right.
And seeking some external validation will make me feel better.
Hmm.
When that's driving you, that's much more exhausting than now I'm doing work because I enjoy it and because I feel passionate about it and
Right.
because I want to help change people's lives.
Right.
Right. So, yes, it's about balance. And it's also about taking a look inside and seeing, what is really going on for me? How am I really feeling? And
Hmm.
what changes do I need to make to shift that if it's not where I want it to be?
Wonderful. So would you say your overall advice to someone would be what specifically? What would your overall be advice to someone?
Yeah, I would say, first and foremost, just sort of be okay with where you're at.
Hmm.
Um, Things are challenging right now, things are difficult.
Right.
And sometimes we don't have control of everything outside of us. We don't have control of the world. We're not, sometimes we don't have control of what's happening in our government or even with the people close to us.
Hmm.
And so I'd say if you're going through a hard time, just sort of acknowledge like, hey, I'm human and it's
Hmm.
okay for me to be struggling right now. I don't have to, you know, find a solution for this problem, you, you know, tomorrow and get myself out of this.
Right.
Also, don't compare your situation to everyone else's,
Right.
right? And that's
Everyone's,
easy to do.
it's easy to do. And what
That's
I
easy
find
to do.
myself, I think all of us sometimes we forget that all of us are going through it. There are 40 million Americans out of work. 40 million. I mean, it's just amazing. This is. People don't realize how bad that is.
Absolutely.
So and a lot of us are not as strong as each other, and people take things differently. I'm a
Hmm.
very strong player. I pride myself on being very tough, not
Yeah.
because I say so. I want to say about ego, but it's more me personally. I
Resilient.
thrive whenever I have a problem. I go into overdrive mode. I go into a different mode. What do I do to fix this? How can I fix this? There has to be a solution. And ultimately I back off a little while. Sometimes when you think of something, you say, man, I can't remember this. The scientists always say, forget it for a
Yeah.
minute. Give it
Yeah.
5 minutes and it comes back to you, right?
It'll come back
Same
to
way. Sometimes I
you.
think I'm a psychologist too.
We're all a psychologist
I know, I know, especially
in our
now,
own
right?
way. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, my second question to you. Give me two traits that have allowed you to succeed up to this point in your life? Two good traits.
Yeah, yeah. Great question, Martin. I think the first one that always comes up for me is my work ethic.
Good.
And I know that that comes from a couple of different places for me. One, um, my parents came here as immigrants to this country, political refugees from Cuba
Oh,
in
wonderful.
1980. I was 2 years old.
Wow.
And so here are two individuals that had already had an established life and work for themselves and a family and had to flee
Mm-hmm.
and come to the United States, take whatever jobs they can find, learn the language, and sort of rebuild a life.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up around that and seeing what my parents did to make sure that my brother and I and later my sister had
Mm-hmm.
opportunities, like I still get emotional about it,
Yep. Yep.
right? Like I don't know that if I was put in that position,
Mm-hmm.
how I would have responded, but it was honorable to see the way that they responded, and so I think that always stuck with me. The other part was having joined the military right out of high school. I joined
That was
the
good.
yeah,
That was a good decision, right?
yes, yeah. So I joined the United States Marine Corps. And for anybody that knows the Marine Corps, I
Number
mean, I think,
five.
yeah, thank you. I think, us Marines will always say we're the top notch branch, we're
Right.
better than all the other. And actually, some of them will even say that too. But
Mm-hmm.
the, that sort of took my work ethic and that mentality to a whole nother level. And
Wow.
sort of a story I always use is I remember years after, a few years after getting out of the Marine Corps and going to some job interviews. And sometimes they present you with a challenging situation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they want to know sort of how you would deal with the challenge or deal
Mm-hmm.
with failure. And
Mm-hmm.
so I remember being asked, so you have a project and this is the goal and you're supposed to meet this project. What happens if you can't meet it? Something to that degree.
Right.
And I sat there sort of with a blind, with a sort of puzzled look. And I'm like, what do you mean I can't?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, yeah, you wouldn't be able to. And I said, I don't understand the question.
Right.
In my mind, it was so ingrained that there is absolutely nothing that is impossible. There's
Right.
absolutely no obstacle that I
Mm-hmm.
can't get around.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been my biggest driver. So the work ethic has been one piece that gets me up every morning, even when I'm tired, even when things feel difficult. I would say the second, Martin, if I was to boil it down to what the actual core thing is compassion.
Good.
I feel like I've been put on this earth to serve others.
Good.
After serving in the Marine Corps, I served as a fireman, as a paramedic, and then as a psychologist. And I think the place where I derive the most joy, contentment, and happiness
Mm-hmm.
is in helping others. And even when this work ethic maybe sometimes might minimize, that passion never, there's just absolutely no way that passion will ever go away.
I think you're pretty much a lot like me too, is that I never forget from where I came from.
Yes.
I've never forgotten that. I haven't, from my little island, St. Lucia, I have never forgotten just that one break that I cut when I came here on a track and field scholarship, and none of my other compatriots did. I
Yeah.
got that one break, so I never forget where I came from. So I always give reverence to my little island. I always do. I am not ashamed to say I'm from the Caribbean or
Yeah.
I'm from Cuba. No, you always, despite
Yeah.
its ills and whatever the goods and bad people talk about,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I love that about you. You
Yeah.
just give credit to where credit is due. Your
Yeah.
place of
Yeah.
birth, right? Wonderful.
And that's amazing that you're able to do that, Martin. One of the things, since first meeting you and up until now, and every single time we talk on the phone,
Hmm.
within seconds of having a conversation with you, there's a smile on my face. You
Hmm.
are one of the most grateful people I've ever met, right? You're always able to find yeah, even though things are difficult, but like I feel blessed and I feel
Yeah,
grateful. Like I got up out of bed today, and what a beautiful way to sort of look at the world and that life.
beautiful. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, one of the things I always say when people get sad, I always tell them that every day in America, just not the world, 1 million people do not wake up. Every day. They
Yeah,
never wake up. and we get the opportunity. So what are we to be sad about?
Right.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Love it.
Great, great, great question. So now, what advice would you give to us, all of us, including myself, the future of this crazy world? What advice, how are we to cope with what's
Yeah.
going on now, a coping mechanism for the future?
I gotcha. Yeah. You know, if we had more time, I can spend 30 minutes talking
I bet
about
you could have even longer.
the sort of psychology behind uncertainty and feeling like we
Mm-hmm.
need to have control in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the first piece of advice is you need to give up on the idea, the illusion that you have control or as much control as you think you have over things in life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Wow, interesting.
That can feel scary initially. It
Mm-hmm.
can provoke a little bit of anxiety, but you absolutely have no control if you show up to work tomorrow and they've decided to lay you off.
Mm-hmm.
You have no control of you come home and your wife or husband or partner say, I don't want this relationship anymore. You don't have control of a loved one that gets into a car accident tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can go on and on.
Wow,
But
true.
I think when we start to feel like we can control all of those things, we actually build a greater level of internal distress.
Mm-hmm.
So people will say, well, Carlos, how do I just let go of that? How do you expect me to just give my life over? No, it's not about that.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is to acknowledge that truthfully it is an illusion. And the second thing is to acknowledge that most of the time we get in our heads and try to create all of these scenarios that end up never playing out,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're worried about the job interview. What if I say something dumb? What if they don't hire me? What if there's too many other people interview? Right? We create scenarios that aren't real,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we can break from those because none of those actually end up happening most of the time. And all we're doing is spending our energy worrying. But here's the awesome part, Martin, and I love this. And this is something that, over time I was able to figure out in my life, and it's helped me transform. And that's to realize if I look back on my life,
Mm-hmm.
I can think of so many times when I was faced with a challenge or a difficulty
Mm-hmm.
and I found a way to overcome.
Wow.
I didn't have the tools, maybe I didn't have the skill set at that time,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I didn't even have the internal resilience, but I figured it out.
Figured it out. That's
I've
my
always
favorite.
figured it
That's
out.
my favorite term. I figure it out.
I figure it out,
That
and
yes.
my tenacity will stick to it until I figure it out. And I've always figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
So why would it be any different in the future?
That's right. But one of the things that I pride myself in myself is I look back at some of the difficulties I've had in my life in the last 20 years, being self-employed most of my life,
Yeah.
and I just always knew that I can do it because I figured things out. I never panic, and for some reason I've had that innate feeling within myself for years. Whenever I have a situation or when I want to accomplish, I'm a high achiever. I consider myself a high achiever, and when I set myself a goal, it's done. It's pretty much done. Now I've just got to bring it to me. So if
Right.
we all embrace that mindset of, but it's not everybody's as strong as as each other, and it's no fault for anyone.
Yeah.
But I think the resiliency factor plays a big role.
It's a huge piece,
Yeah.
and I like what you said there. Not everybody's the same, and you're absolutely right. I think some of these principles that I'm talking about, they're very generalized.
Hmm.
But part of the work that I do, and the part of the reason I love doing the work that I do, is because we all have our blind spots. We all have things, obstacles that are particular to us based on our own life experiences.
Right.
And I like to help people sort of individualize that process.
Hmm.
Why are you getting stuck here? Why does this feel like a problem for you? And sort of allow them to move past that because we're all different, right?
Oh,
We're all
trust me,
different.
we are different, and we all have to respect that, and especially in these turbulent times where the future is so unknown. There's so many unknowns right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I read 3 or 4 newspapers a day online. I have 3 or 4 websites I go to. I get feedback from my friends and people, And everybody's asking, what's going on in America? What's going on in America? What's going on in America? And you read all, you hear all the doom and gloom philosophies out there, the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
It goes on and on and on. Don't even talk
We
about
have
the
to.
political situation.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Not even go. That's for another show, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's a whole other show. But you're right. I think we need to protect our energy and protect our minds, Martin.
Yes.
Um, because it's easy to sort of sit there on Facebook or
Oh,
Instagram scrolling, and depending on the pages you follow or the people you follow or the
right.
news, and just get overwhelmed.
Oh,
It's this bombardment of negative information,
yeah.
and let me tell you, psychologically it will get to you. You start to
Yes.
feel down. You start to feel
Mm.
like hopeless and
Yes, indeed.
helpless.
Yes, indeed.
And so, I'm not saying shut all that information out. You want to keep informed, but be mindful and intentional about the information
Mm-hmm.
that you feed your mind every day.
Right on. Good.
It will shift your attitude completely.
Oh, that is great advice. That is great advice. I know that the the audience that we have would really appreciate your professionalism. I respect you. I know if I ever needed advice, I haven't needed you yet, but if I ever needed you, I'll get a pretty good deal on my numbers, right?
Absolutely.
But
First one's on the house.
there you go, there you go. But I really appreciate your time today. I try not to be too long in my interviews because I don't
Yeah.
like people to get bored. But you gave lots of value, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
So,
Mark. Thank you.
so tell me now, how does anyone get a hold of Dr. Garcia?
Sure. Yeah, they can contact me via email. My email is Carlos at Tampa CW stands for Counseling and Wellness .com. They can find me on Facebook or go to my Instagram account. My most active Instagram account
Yeah.
is life_doc, the life doc.
Life Doc. Oh, that's who you are. Let me see on my Instagram
That's
account.
me.
Yeah,
That's me.
and you're on Facebook as Facebook
Yeah, they can find me as life doc there as well.
Life Doctor as well.
Yeah, don't search Carlos Garcia because there's
Just
like a
Life
billion of
Doc.
us out there. So
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. That's personal between you and I. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Dr. Garcia, like I told you, I respect the fact that, most professionals work hard for their title. So although I know you as Carlos on the phone call, but in a professional environment, you are Dr. Garcia to me.
thank you,
I
Mark. Yeah,
appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. You did say today you take Wednesdays off, so the timing was appropriate.
yeah,
I wish you all the speed, your good luck in the future. The future is bright for all of us.
yeah,
Despite what's going on, the future is still
absolutely.
bright.
It is.
I am an eternal optimist. I think
Yes,
you know a little bit
I
about me.
do.
I'm an eternal optimist. I never see the dark side. The
Absolutely.
dark side is there, but we always have to look on the bright side.
Mhm.
So, without further ado, appreciate your time, and we probably have a follow-up sometime in a few months. But if there's anything that I can do to reach out, you need to get the word out on something. Feel free that you have a friend over here.
I
Okay?
know I do, Martin. Thanks for having me. I really
My
appreciate
pleasure. You have a great day the rest of the time, and we'll talk soon again.
it. See
Okay?
you, Mark.
Thank you, buddy. Bye bye.